Okay, good evening, everybody. It's Wednesday night, so it's halacha and Tanya. Last time we were discussing the laws of Tachnun, which is the confessional after we say after the Shemona Esrei. Today I want to talk about the laws of Torah reading. And one of the fundamental things in Yiddishkeit is Torah reading. So let me discuss first the origin of why we read the Torah in public. And as we know, we read the Torah on Shabbos morning, Shabbos afternoon, and Monday and Thursday. In addition to that, if it's Rosh Chodesh, Yom Tov, Chol HaMoed, fast days, we just had one the other day, then we also read the Torah. Now, the origin of Torah reading, the Talmud says, originated from Moshe Rabbeinu. The Torah tells a story that after the Jews finished the splitting of the sea, okay, and they went 3 days without water, it went, that was before Moshe Rabbeinu hit the rock the first time. And the Jews complained, we don't have any water to drink, which was justifiable, by the way. So what happened is Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu hit the rock, and the water came up. So we know, the Gemara says Torah is likened to water. There's many psukim that alludes to the fact Torah comes from a high place to a low place. Water comes from a high place to a low place. You cannot live without Torah. You can't live without water. So the Gemara says an interesting thing. Moshe Rabbeinu, when he said the Jews went 3 days without water and they complained, so Moshe Rabbeinu says Torah is water, and therefore what we are going to do is institute Torah reading. It should never be 3 days without Torah reading. So Moshe Rabbeinu instituted Shabbos morning, Monday and Thursday, and the fast days and all that stuff. Now, and Yom Tov, Shabbos afternoon at Mincha, when we have an additional Torah reading, that was instituted much later by Ezra HaSofer. By Ezra at the beginning of the second Bais Din. Why did he institute Torah reading then? So the Gemara says, because there were a lot of people that during the week they weren't able to go to shul. They had to go to work, they were busy. So he wanted to give an opportunity for those people that didn't hear Torah reading during the week. So he gave an opportunity. So he made an obligation. It's actually a halachic obligation that you have to read the Torah Shabbos afternoon. Okay, now, if you know, the men probably would know this better than the women because they're just there. During the week, Monday, Thursday, we have three aliyahs, 3 people called to the Torah. Shabbos at Mincha, we have 3 aliyahs. As the days progress and whole year, we add 1 more aliyah. So for instance, Rosh Chodesh or Chol HaMoed, which is holier than a regular weekday, we have 4 aliyahs. Yom Tov, which is holier, we have 5 aliyahs. Yom Kippur, which is even holier, we have 6 aliyahs. And Shabbos, which is the holiest in this respect, we have 7 aliyahs. Okay? So therefore, there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Monday and Thursday, Shabbos at Mincha, we read 3 aliyahs. Rosh Chodesh Chol HaMoed is 4. Yom Tov is 5. Yom Kippur is 6. Shabbos is 7. This is what he instituted from the days of Moshe Rabbeinu, from the days of Ezra. That's how many people are called to the Torah. There's a lot of laws about how many psukim is a minimal aliyah, and the Gemara says, in fact, you can't have an aliyah less than 3 psukim, and altogether it has to be 10. The minimal is 10. So the Gemara asks the question, Purim in the morning, when we read Vayovei Amalek Purim in the morning, there's only 9 psukim. Each aliyah is only, and the Gemara asks, but you just said the least is 10. And the Gemara says over there, it finishes a complete thing by itself, so therefore 9 is good. So there's a lot of laws actually about, the obligation of Torah reading Monday, Thursday, Shabbos to Mincha, and so on. So now, when the Torah is being taken out, from the Aron Kodesh, where the Torah is placed, and you carry it to the place with the Shulchan where you're reading the Torah. So as everybody knows, somebody takes the Torah out of the Ark, out of the Aron, they give it to the Chazan, and the Chazan brings it to the Shulchan. Now, when you said these are all halach, it's interesting. People take it for granted, but these are actual dinim in halach. When you carry the Sefer Torah from the Chazan's place, which again is facing east, right? We're facing Israel, which is facing east. You go on the north side. As this is east, if this way is east, the north is there. Okay? It's on my left. I mean, you're going to see it differently but north would be on the left of facing east. So when the Chazan carries the Sefer Torah from the Amud where he davens to the Shulchan to put it down to read the Torah, he goes on the north, even though it's more distant than the south. The other way might be closer, but no. Halacha says you carry it through the north, and then you put it down on the Shulchan. After Torah reading, when you bring the Torah back, then you go through on the south side. Back. It doesn't matter if it's shorter, longer. Going, if you're facing east, you go on, the Chazan carries the Sefer Torah on the north side and going back on the south side. You don't go the way you came. Come on the north, you go back on the south. Now, when the Chazan is carrying this Sefer Torah, he's supposed to hold it on his right side. He holds it on the right side. Why? Because right is more prominent than left. And I believe, I have to double check this, but even a left-handed person might have to do that also, because we're talking about the community, not as the individual. Now, you have to hold the Sefer Torah in your right hand. Now, there's a din as follows. When the Sefer Torah is being taken around from the Aron, the Ark, to the Shulchan where they read, or from the Shulchan back to the Aron, it says in halacha, it's not done practically, but I'll explain what it says. It says in halacha, you should accompany the Sefer Torah until it gets to the Shulchan. You accompany the Sefer Torah when it leaves the Shulchan until it gets back to the Aron Kodesh. Now today it's not done, it says in Poskim, because then you're going to have the whole shul, it's going to be a balagan. But it does say you need to follow it with your eyes. The community needs to follow the Sefer Torah with their eyes. And in fact, the Rebbe, whoever noticed this, when they took out the Sefer Torah and they were carrying it by the Chazan in the front of the shul, all the way to the middle of the shul where the bima was, where the shulchan was, the Rebbe would stand there and follow with his eyes the whole journey of the Sefer Torah until it was put down on the shulchan. Why? Because it says in halacha, that's respect for the Sefer Torah. So in Shulchan Aruch itself, it says you should walk behind the Sefer Torah. But again, that's not done because it's just going to cause a mess. Women obviously are not going to come in the men's shul, and the women are behind the mechitza. Many times they're not able to see it. If they could see it, not by opening the mechitza, they could follow it with that. It's just a respect for the Sefer Torah. Okay, now whenever a Sefer Torah is being taken from one place to another place, everybody has to stand. Whoever sees the Sefer Torah has to stand. It's again, the Gemara says, if you stand up for the scholar, how much more so should you stand up for what the scholar is learning for the Torah? So halachically, a person has to stand up when they see the Sefer Torah being taken out of the Ark to the Ark. Whenever the Sefer, when they do Hagba, they pick up the Sefer Torah, then you also have to look at the Sefer Torah. Not the women, because they're not physically able to see it. But the men have an obligation to look at the writing of the Sefer Torah when they pick up the Sefer Torah. Now it's interesting, Svardim have a custom. They have those, the big silver Sefer Torahs, not like the Ashkenazim with the Eitz Chaim, or called the handles. They do Hagba before the Torah reading. Ashkenazim, the custom is we do it after Torah reading. It's just different customs. Sephardic pick up the Torah and show it to the community what they're going to be reading, and Ashkenazic, everybody across with the board, Ashkenazic, pick it up after the Torah reading, show the people what we read. Now, when somebody is called to the Torah, when somebody gets an aliyah, so they go to the shulchan for their aliyah the quickest way. Remember, when we carry the Sefer Torah, you go north and south, whether it's longer or shorter. But if somebody is called for an aliyah, they go up the quickest way possible. Why? They want to show that they want to go. They want to get there quicker. When you go away from the aliyah, you walk away from your aliyah, then you're supposed to go the longer way. Now, if they're both equal, what happens if they're both equal? Then you do either way. Okay, you go up the right and you go down the left. So if the both ways are exactly the same, you go up on the right side and you go down on the left side. Again, we want to show that we're running to an aliyah and we're upset leaving the Torah, so therefore we go the weaker way. Now, when somebody is called to the Torah, now let me explain another interesting concept over here. In the time of the Gemara and before and many years after, they didn't have what's called a Baal Koreh. Baal Koreh is the guy that reads the Torah in shul. They didn't have that. What happened when somebody was called to his aliyah? The people then knew Torah by heart and were able to read it without vowels and everything. So the din was, when somebody was called to aliyah, they read the Torah portion. The next guy read his Torah portion. The next guy, the 7 aliyahs, each guy read their Torah portion, because you're making a bracha on it, so you should be reading it. Now, later years, what happened? People weren't able to do it. If people weren't able to do it, so they had to get a guy that reads the Torah. But therefore, the halacha is that when you get an aliyah and the Baal Koreh is reading, your aliyah, you are supposed to read along with him very quietly, because really you're supposed to be doing it, but you're supposed to be reading it, but you're not doing it loud because the Baal Koreh is doing it loud for everybody. So therefore, what you need to do is read it along quietly with the Baal Koreh. If somebody's unable to, then they don't. But that's the way that they read the Torah together with the Baal Koreh. Now, I want to explain one more thing before we go into the practical dinim of aliyahs and things like that. And that is like this. We know that on Shabbos, there is what's called haftorah, mafter. Shabbos, Yom Tif, fast days at afternoon, Tisha B'Av, morning and afternoon. Now, where does this concept of the haftorah come around? How did that originate? So it says in halacha the following. There was the takana of Moshe Rabbeinu and Ezra to read the Torah, Shabbos, Monday, Thursday, and Shabbos to Mincha. There was a time of a decree made. This is going back already in the Rambam's times, before the Rambam's times. There was a decree the Jews were not allowed to read Torah, punishable by death. So the Jews, instead of reading the Torah, they found something in scriptures, in Tanakh, in Nach, primarily in the Nevi'im, in the prophets, that was similar to the Parsha. And they would read that instead of reading the Torah, because they could. There was a decree that, and the Romans and the Goy were checking, and they would, it was punishable by death. You don't have to give up your life for that. So what happened was the Chachamim instituted those generations that because we can't read the Torah, we're going to read a haftorah, which is similar to the Parsha. Then the decree became nullified. So they stopped reading the haftorah, and then they went back to the chumash. Then in later years, the decree happened again. And then they instituted to read the haftorah instead of the chumash. Then, though, when the decree became abolished, the Chachamim said, we're going to read haftorah also. When Shabbos, Yom Tov, fast days in the afternoon, and Tisha B'Av is the exception that we do it in the morning and the afternoon. So then it stuck. So now, what would happen is there would be 7 aliyos in the Torah, and then one guy would just read the haftorah, right? Because you finished the parsha already. You read all 7. So what would be, technically it should be 7 aliyos, and then the guy should just get up and say the haftorah. But then Chachamim said it doesn't look right, because then it looks like the Navi, the prophet, is equal to the Chumash. So therefore, what do? We read over the last few psukim. It's called maftir. We read over the last few psukim of the parsha, and then that guy gets the maftir and the haftorah. So then it shows that Torah is still more important than the Navi. That is the origin of the concept of a haftorah. That's the origin of the aliyos, and so on and so forth. It's interesting. By the way, this is very relevant in halacha. But it's not halacha, it's halacha. But, okay, now, when somebody gets called to the Torah, a man or a bar mitzvah gets called to the Torah, you're supposed to show him the place where you're starting to read from. Why? Because he's making a bracha on the Torah reading. He has to know what part is he making a bracha on. He says, Baruch Hu Hashem Baruch Atah Hashem Asher Nasa Lanu Torah Semetz V'Chayil Notav B'Sachenu. Okay? Or Asher Baruch Rabbonim no. Whatever. The aliyah, the bracha before Asher Nasa Lanu and Nesan HaTorah twice. Okay? So you have that bracha. So you have to know. So the custom in the world, interestingly, is only to show the beginning. The Balkari will take with the yad, it's called, they'll extend the thing, or with his fingers. If there is no yad, he will show you where the parsha begins. In Chabad, the custom is we show you beginning and end. You should know where we're starting, and then we show you what the end is. Now, it says, it's an interesting halacha. Normally, if you ever see, if you're on the men's side, for sure you see. The guy takes his talis, or the gartel from the Sefer Torah, touches the beginning and the end, beginning, end. The Rebbe used to touch again the beginning, and then he kisses it, and he says aliyot. That's our minhag, by the way. A lot of people touch only the beginning. Some people touch beginning and end, whatever. But the interesting thing in halacha, it says, many poskim scream that you're not allowed to do that. Why are you not allowed to do that? Because the men are going to know this better again, because they see it. Sometimes a guy takes his talis, and instead of just touching it and kissing it, he'll rub the letters, he'll rub it. Now, what happens by that, the poskim write, you can get, if it's Shabbos, you get 3 sins. Number one, you're erasing a Sefer Torah, which you're not allowed to. Number one, you're erasing on Shabbos, which is forbidden. And there's a lot of opinions that say you're actually not allowed to do it. And they write, the Dark Tshuva says you come erasing God's name, you're causing the Sefer Torah to become puzzle, not kosher, and you're causing desecration of Shabbos. So what some people do is, it's not Chabad custom, but some people do is they'll just touch the outside of the Sefer Torah. That's it, just to touch it, to kiss it. Our custom is we touch beginning, end, and the Rebbe also touched the beginning, and then, but you touch it, you don't rub it, because again, then you're going to invalidate the Sefer Torah, because it's ink on parchment, you can rub it out. So you have to be very careful with it. You just touch it, lightly, and then beginning and end you kiss. Then our custom is, after you do that, you turn your face a little bit to the right. Just a little bit to the right. Say Baruch Hashem Veirach. People have to Baruch Hashem Ne'echam. Then you say Baruch Hashem Akel Asher Baruch Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'Nasan Lanu Es Teirasei. Baruch Hashem Neisen HaTeira. Then the Balkari reads the aliyah. When you're done with the aliyah, touch the end of the beginning, and then you make the second bracha. Now here's a very interesting Chabad custom, which was a difference between the way the previous Rebbe did it and our Rebbe did it. In many poskim, it says like this. The Gemara says, you're not allowed to hold the Sefer Torah naked. You're not allowed to touch the Sefer Torah with your bare hand. For a lot of reasons, not for tumah, a lot of issues. So there are opinions in halacha that say not only the parchment, but even the handles of the Sefer Torah you shouldn't touch without something, not with your naked hands. So the previous Rebbe, this brought down, many people did this. The previous Rebbe, when he got an aliyah, didn't hold the Eitz Chaim. Eitz Chaim are the handles of the Sefer Torah with his bare hands. He held it with his talus. He held it with his talus, not with his bare hand. Our Rebbe did it with his bare hands. That's what his father did. It's some things that Rebbe did like his father, some things that Rebbe did like it. But there was one time a year, it's very interesting, it was very noticeable. One time a year that the Rebbe did it with the talus, holding the Eitz Chaims. When was that? Simchas Torah in the morning, the Rebbe got called up to Chosin Bereishis, the one that begins the Torah. So the custom in Chabad, we mentioned this last time, was that they called the previous Rebbe and the Rebbe. In other words, in the previous Rebbe's time, for Chosin Bereishis, they called up his father and the Frierdiker Rebbe. And in our Rebbe's times, for Chosin Bereishis only, they would call up the previous Rebbe and our Rebbe. Okay? So then everybody was very noticeable. Then the Rebbe held the talus, the handles with the talus. Why? Because the Frierdiker Rebbe was being called up also. And because that's what the Frierdiker Rebbe, that's what his father-in-law, the previous Rebbe did, that's what the Rebbe did also. So he actually held, there was once a year that the Rebbe held the Eitz Chaims with the talus. Okay. Now, then you, read this, hold the Sefer Torah, and then, now, every person halachically has to follow. I'm talking about men now. Women do not have this obligation. Men have an obligation to follow the Torah reading. They're not allowed to daven during the actual time the reading of the Torah. They have to listen. Women, many poskim say, can continue davening. If they want, they could stop and follow the Torah reading. But men are not allowed to daven when the Torah is being read. Why? It's disrespectful. You stop davening, you listen to the aliyah. Then, in between aliyahs, when they're making the mishaberachs or whatever they make, then you can continue davening. As soon as the next aliyah comes and makes the bracha, you have to stop, listen to the kriya, and then you can finish afterwards. Okay, so now you say, okay, now the person that's getting the aliyah and the person reading the Torah must stand. I'm not talking about, God forbid, a crippled person who can't get off a wheelchair. It's a different story. But a person has to stand when they're reading the Torah and when you get called to the Torah. Therefore, halacha says, if you're going to lean on the shulchan, on the table that they read the Torah, in a way that if they would pull it away, you'd fall down, like we spoke about Shemoneh Esrei. Shemoneh Esrei, you have to stand. And we learned that if you're leaning on your table or something that would pull away the table, you'd fall down. So then it's not called standing. The same thing with Torah reading. You're not allowed to lean in a way that you're putting a lot of weight. Why? It says in halacha, because you have to stand with fear and awe. The reading the Torah is being given now. You're going to lean on the table? You can just listen, or do you have to follow in a chumash as well? It says in halacha you should follow in a chumash. What happens if you don't have a chumash? Then you have no choice. You can look with somebody else, but in a situation where there's no chumashim, but it says in halacha you're supposed to follow it in a chumash, not in a sefer. Okay. Now, during the actual Torah reading, the different opinions if you have to stand or not. Halachically, you're allowed to sit during the Torah reading. There are opinions say when they make the brachas, you should stand. Some people say, you could sit then also, and what happens. Now, if you notice, when they read the Torah, there's two guys on the side, one on one side, one on the other side. What's the origin of that? It says because when Torah was given, it was given through an agent, i.e. Moshe Rabbeinu. So because Torah was given with an agent, you're supposed to have an agent present at the time the Torah is being read. Now also, it's another interesting custom, which halacha brings down. When you get an aliyah, you finish your aliyah, okay? Then they call the next guy. When do you go down or go back away from where they read the Torah? So the custom is you wait around until the guy finishes the bracha at the end of the next aliyah. That means, let's say Kohen gets called first, then Levi. The Kohen stays up there until the Levi finishes, the reading is finished, and the Levi makes the bracha at the end. Then he goes down. The Levi sticks around. Then that's the way it goes. That's because it's all mentioned in halacha. And there are reasons for all of that respect, and that's what it is. Now, another very interesting thing, and we'll leave it with this. This should be there are signs hanged in the shul, and it doesn't help. It says once the guy starts reading the Torah, it's forbidden for anybody to speak, even words of Torah. Even between aliyah and aliyah, you're not allowed to talk. You're not allowed to leave the shul during the actual Torah reading. Between aliyahs, if the Sefer Torah is covered, then for great need, you're allowed to go out. So basically, it says clearly in halacha that you're not allowed to talk during the Torah reading. Why? It's a very simple thing. They're reading God's Torah. What are you talking about? What you're talking is more important than God's Torah. So it's halachically forbidden to talk. Now, the Rebbe in Tanya says another even stronger thing. Now, the Rebbe says in Tanya, and he said, I'm going to send spies to check it out, and whoever doesn't listen, I'm going to excommunicate them. And now the Rebbe says like this: as soon as the Chazan begins the first word of davening, Haidul Hashem, until the end of the last Kaddish, at the end of davening, the Alter Rebbe warns, I don't want people talking. And if they talk intentionally, not stam a word or two, but if they're talking, the Alter Rebbe says, I'm going to excommunicate you. And not only that, he says in Tanya, I'm going to send spies to check it out. So the Alter Rebbe was very emphatic about this non-talking during Torah reading, which halacha says not talking during B'chlal davening and all that. So all those things are actually mamish forbidden to do during the time of davening. And if you think about it, it's just disrespectful. That's all. And if you're talking about Hashem's Torah, we're reading Hashem's Torah, and we shouldn't be talking. Okay. Tanya time.